Hello everybody, this is Joseph P. Farrell. We are here, news and views from the Nefarium on Thursday, June 27th, 2013. I want to talk about a really interesting article that appeared at RT it's actually an interview with Max Keiser. Some of you may have seen his show on RT, but first a couple of announcements. I am within one chapter of finishing the current book. This is going to be the final push. This is a very difficult chapter. All the chapters have increased in difficulty as I've been writing. So hopefully sometime in the next couple of weeks you're going to hear me shout, yay, it's finally done, and hopefully after that a couple more weeks on the shelves. Those of you who've been asking about Financial Vipers of Venice, I just finished last week. That's the reason that I was late getting the news and views out late last week. I just finished the edits of their edits. So hopefully that will be coming along soon. I certainly hope so. Some of you have asked about Georgianne Hughes. She's doing fine. She wants me to pass along to you her thanks for all the donations. She does have to have, I guess now, 2 different eye surgeries. She tried to explain to me why. Her eye doctor can't fix one of the things that's apparently wrong with her eyes, but she is doing all right. So just wanted to thank you. Continue your prayers and donations for Georgianne because she really needs the help. She finances all of her uploading and bandwidth herself, so you can imagine it's rather expensive. Alright, let's move along to RT and Max Keiser. And this concerns the Snowden affair. And you recall last week I suggested that the real root or the real hidden story here isn't so much the surveillance. They've been spying on people for, who knows, probably since before World War I. And he suggested that the real root is financial. Now, I've speculated in Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, and last week, that the real story here with the Snowden affair is financial. And finally, someone has come along and basically said what I've been thinking, and that's Max Keiser. This is a short little blog that appears at RT. I'll set up the link for you so that you can read this. It's only about a page and a half long, and let me get right into what he says. The interviewer asked him, can you also give an idea of how some of these big companies like Google or Facebook could actually benefit from a surveillance program like PRISM? Is there a financial gain from it? And here's Keiser's response, and listen very carefully. Absolutely. Because all of the manipulation involves rigging the indexes, and the indexes are all data sensitive. So, if you can manipulate the data, you can manipulate the indexes, and you manipulate the markets. In other words, the interest rates and so on and so forth. If you feed enough false data into the system, that will in turn reflect on interest rates, on indexes, and everything else in the financial markets. If you have advanced knowledge of that inside information, and again, a surveillance program like what Snowden has revealed would give them that, you can make billions of dollars front-running high-frequency trading. And high-frequency trading, just for those of you who don't know, are trades that are executed within microseconds by computers, trading huge volumes with the slightest little minute movement of the market. In other words, computers have vastly taken over all the brokerage, all the commodities and stock market exchanges that humans used to do. These trades are now, the big trades are now all executed on computers. So again, the NSA's spying problems, the NSA's supercomputer capacity would enable them to execute trades on an enormous scale. Now hang on, I'm building up to something here that Keiser says that just floored me when I read it, but it's the hidden part of the story that I suspect is going to come out. And of course, all the banks on Wall Street, he says, are in on this, and all the banks in the UK. And let's be honest here, every major bank in the world has some tie to this type of trade. But what Keiser's suggesting is that these types of trades that are corrupted by this system are probably through gateway banks in the West, key banks in the United States, Canada, Australia, perhaps in Asia, the United Kingdom, and so on and so forth. This is what I think he's suggesting. Now let me go back to the first page in this interview. This is where it gets really interesting, and I'm going to read these two paragraphs in reverse order. Alright, this is not the order that they occur in the actual RT article, but there's a reason why I'm doing that, and you'll see in a minute. RT begins by asking him, surely not even you can make any kind of link between the Snowden saga and the U.S. economy. And here's Keiser's response. Quote, this is really about money, markets, and manipulations. It's not about security. It's not to do with anything that the White House says. Remember, the White House is a puppet of Wall Street, Booz Allen, the hedge funds, and the financial interests of the corrupt bankers. That's the second paragraph. Now here comes the curveball. What's interesting is that Snowden worked for Booz Allen. Booz Allen, allegedly, along with a few other companies, are the masterminds behind the LIBOR market rigging. In other words, the London Interbank offered rate, in other words, the interest rates that were being set and manipulated by banks on the international financial scene. Every market rigging, Forex market rigging, and this is really the fuel that keeps the American military empire going, because the American economy itself cannot support its military ambitions, so they've resorted to market manipulation, and the kind of intelligence that Edward Snowden is able to aggregate is key to manipulating markets in ways that make Booz Allen allegedly the channel for billions and billions of dollars into Americans' military campaigns, unquote. Now, folks, I hope you realize what Max Keiser just put his finger on and what he just said. Because what he just said was that there is a huge, hidden, and entirely fraudulent system of finance, and it is this system that is propping up the American military machine. Now, this is precisely the case that I was arguing in Covert Wars and Breakaway Civilizations, that was indicated by the bearer bond scandals, algorithmic trading, the theft of promised software back in the 1980s, and so on and so forth. It was used to leverage a huge financial bubble that was used to fund entirely off the books covert operations, black projects research, and now, as Keiser's hinting, the current military adventurism of the United States. So in other words, there's a fraudulent system in place, and it has deeply, deeply corrupted the entire system. And now what he's suggesting is it must be maintained by this intelligence agency penetration of the financial markets. So in other words, he's saying something else very significant that I've been suggesting for a long time, and that is, it's not just the central bankers anymore who are the problem. The real problem is coming from within the intelligence agencies. They're the new central bankers with all of their sophisticated equipment, their ability to execute these high volume, high frequency algorithmic trading with computers based on the kind of inside information that this kind of surveillance gives them. Alright? So pull the plug on that, and you pull the plug on the security aspects. Now, there's something else he's suggesting, he's hinting at in this article, and I hope you caught it. And that is, if you have a capability, let's go back to Promise in 1980, in the 1980s. This software was stolen by the Justice Department, backdoors were engineered, and then it was sold all over the world, and it was used to keep track of things like financial trades. Now imagine that software updated and used on the most recent computers. In other words, what we're looking at, I believe, is the fallout of something that happened well over 30 years ago. Alright? So what we're dealing with now is a capability in the NSA that will be able to follow the derivatives. Let's go back and recall that all of this financial bubble first began when the mortgage market collapsed, with the housing bubble collapse, and it also began with the collapse of the credit default swaps and all of the derivatives that had been based on the credit default swaps. So in other words, they have the ability to track all of this trade, and they probably know where the bubble really is and who the final holder of all of this paper is. So this is the other thing that they're wanting to keep quiet. This is a huge national security issue, but it's a huge national security issue not for the reasons that they're talking about, terrorism and worldwide plots. I heard a Republican senator while I was away on my trip talking about worldwide plots and all the people that are scheming to get us, and how all of this has been thwarted by all of this NSA stuff. No, it's about money, and it's about a fraudulent system of finance that I documented and put into place after World War II, and it's about keeping that system alive. So in other words, this is not going to go away. Now there's one last thing that Keiser mentions here, and I hope you caught it. If Snowden was working for Booz Allen, and if this is really all about finance, then why would he expose his own company's role in this? So in other words, Keiser is suggesting or hinting, and I believe he's entirely correct, that Snowden is working for someone else. This is where I disagree with many people in the West. My good friend and colleague John Rappaport thinks that this is probably turf wars between the CIA and the NSA. I don't think it's that. I think Snowden is eventually going to be found to be a point man for somebody else, perhaps a foreign power like Russia or China, that are intent on exposing this financial aspect of this story, or perhaps some independent group. We don't know. One thing I'm certain of, one thing I can predict, is I think we're going to see more and more about this story carefully and slowly come out that's going to connect it to all of the financial things that Keiser's talking about in this article. I think he's dead on, folks, and I think it puts another strong argument in the case that there really was a hidden system of finance created after World War II by the American National Security Establishment, and now it's all being exposed. Anyway, that's it for this week on News and Views from the Nefarium. I'll see you on the flip side, folks, and bye-bye, everybody. God bless.